back, everybody, to another edition of the Grace Over Grind podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Laci Robbins of Robbins Nest Consulting, and I'm so excited that you would take the time to invest in yourself by being a part of this conversation. Now, listen, for this particular episode, I want to encourage you to grab your notebook, grab your journal. You're going to want to take notes, maybe even pause the process as you're going through. If you are listening to this in the car, this might be an episode you want to grab when you are at home so that you have an opportunity to pause and to reflect. On today, I really want to talk about redefining success. Redefining success. And what this is actually the first pillar of being a sustainable leader. It's the first pillar in sustainable leadership is redefining success on your terms. Yes, we have been conditioned and bought into this belief system that success has to look a particular way. So for example, you may have thought that success, and in the past, it definitely has been the case, that success is used to measure, or we measure success by titles. We measure success by corner offices, right? The next promotion, what kind of car that you drive, being and having packed calendars, a nonstop hustle. For a lot of people, this is how they determine whether or not they have achieved a level of success. But today's leaders, I would argue, especially for those in mid-sized corporations, nonprofits, educational lanes, they are realizing that that definition of success is really one that's like old-fashioned, that definition of success is really one that's no longer sustainable. And that definition of success is a pathway to burnout and really is unsustainable. It's a pathway that is now, and it's a thought process, a mindset, dare I say, that is outdated. Real leadership success, I believe, and here at Robbins Nest, we believe that it is about longevity, that it's about impact, and it's about well-being. And if you can have a nice balance of the three, you're more likely to experience a place of success that you've missed out on in the past. And so with that being said, I want to encourage you in this particular episode to think, how can you begin to make the bold move where you are now redefining success on your terms? So what is the real cost? Let's take a step back. What is the real cost on someone else's definition? What is the real cost that you experience when you start to live your life of success on what someone else believes to be a level of achievement, right? Of what someone else believes that, oh, you've actually made it now. Well, in my work, and what I've noticed in working with like nonprofits, mid-sized organizations, mid-sized companies, leaders from these institutions, as well as even education fields across various industries, right? I've seen some common patterns that start to emerge. And as a researcher, I'm always looking for patterns, right? And some patterns that I'm noticing are, high-performing professionals are quietly burning out. High-performing professionals are quietly burning out. They're literally like smoldering in the corner, right? A soft little smoke that is starting to emerge from the burnout. This burnout, this quietly burning out, is really coming from chasing metrics. It's coming from trying to determine or live to an achieved space that someone else has defined. And a lot of times these metrics don't even align with the values that these leaders have. And so they're following outdated templates, they're chasing promotions. Sometimes there's even some people pleasing that's happening, right? Remember that concept of rowing. You're working so hard, you're putting in a lot of effort only to really go nowhere. Grace Over Grind listeners, this one's for all of the parents, aunties, mentors, and big sisters out there. If you have a girl on her way to grades 5 through 9, I want to personally invite her to join me for Lead Her Academy, a 1-week summer experience created to build confidence, communication, and leadership in our next generation. As a mom and leadership coach, I knew girls need more than just motivation. They need mentorship, vision, and above all else, a safe space to grow. And that's exactly what happens inside Lead Her Academy. Visit now, robinsnestconsulting.com/lead her academy to enroll or learn more. Join me there because spots are limited. Don't wait. Lead her here. And so, what ends up happening, you're overextending yourself. You're ending up overwhelmed. You're ending up exhausted. And you're ending in finding your place starts to become disengaged and disconnected. What really is happening is the work that you once loved, you couldn't wait to get to the office. You couldn't wait to pop up on your laptop. You couldn't wait for the next big meeting. You now are disengaged and you now are finding your place and yourself in a space that is disconnected. You no longer want to go to the next big thing or experience the next meeting or conference or whatever the case might be. Why? Because they're climbing someone else's corporate ladder. They're climbing someone else's ladder of expectations. They're climbing and setting their bar to someone else's thought as to what is success. Well, I want to invite you to think about success that better aligns with your own values, aligns with the values that you've established for yourself. Because I've said it in the past, and I'll say it again here, your goals change, your goals evolve, your goals continue to, with the next new year, next quarter, they might morph a bit, but your values go to your core. And your values are something that you don't change, not typically. So, if this is a part of your belief system, you want to make sure that success is aligning with those values that you've established for yourself. Because here's the truth: sustainable leadership starts when you define what success looks like for you, what success looks like for your team, or what success even looks like for your organization. And so I want to invite you to take a moment, get that notebook out. I mentioned at the top of this episode that you're going to want to have your journal, you're going to want to have your notebook so you have a chance to respond to these thought provoking questions. Well, question number one is this: what do you value most? Is it impact? Is it innovation? Is it the freedom to set your day? Maybe it's your family, or is it even influence? When you can define for yourself what you value most, this almost becomes like your North Star, right? It becomes the guiding principle, becomes the guiding direction for everything that you're doing. For me, one of the things that I value most is family. So when I'm making decisions for what I'm going to do, be it accepting a new opportunity, working with a new contract, having to travel for work, I'm often thinking to myself, is this going to impact something that we have going on at home in the original Robbins Nest? And if I have to answer the question yes, then I start to think about my checklist, right? Who do I need to have in place to ensure that we can keep things humming back at the home front while I'm working on something else? Or is this an opportunity that perhaps I need to say no? No is a complete sentence and not have the guilt in saying no. Because, in fact, when you make one choice and you say yes to one thing, you are, in fact, saying no to something else. And so you have to be in a space that you're comfortable enough to be able to do that. Here's number two: what kind of legacy do you desire to leave? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? For some people, leaving a legacy is all about building something that they can pass on to the next generation. Others, leaving a legacy is more in connection with community. For some, leaving a legacy is a huge endowment that they can pass on to perhaps their college or a nonprofit that they really admire. So you need to decide for yourself, well, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? And this isn't necessarily a question that you can answer in the next 10 minutes. It might be something that you have to pause, reflect, and really ponder because legacy looks different in different ways. You could be what they call a micro philanthropist, right? So you are writing $10, $20 checks to various organizations because you want to be able to offer that support. That is, in fact, leaving a legacy. A legacy doesn't always mean that your name is on the side of the building. It could, but that doesn't necessarily mean you've achieved a pinnacle of success. And you haven't if you don't see your name on the side of a building. Keeping in mind that once you define what kind of legacy you want to leave, that directly correlates with what kind of successes you want to have. All right, here's number 3. What rhythms and boundaries support your well being? As you know, I truly believe in blended living. I do not believe, or nor do I aspire to the thought that we could have a balanced life because life is not balanced. There's always something that needs more of your attention versus something else. And so you have to figure out, how do I blend things? How do I blend things that are happening in your life? I'm so excited here in the Robbins Nest. We recently had a high school graduate, right? My son just graduated from high school. So excited for him, all that God has in store for him. And during the week, teeing up for his graduation, that meant some other things had to go to the side, right? I had to, one, trust my team. They've got it. They know what to do because we've been consistent in how we show up. So because we are consistent in everything that we do, I could take a step back to be more focused on family. I also had to realize that some things just weren't going to get done because it was all about him. And I'm really excited for what's in store for him. And so I wanted to make sure to make the week as special as possible. And so this being the case, I had to make some decisions as to how can I ensure that I still had a rhythm and a boundary around my own personal well-being. So what did that look like exactly? Well, it may mean that, instead of getting up at my usual 5 a.m., I might have to get up a little bit earlier, or maybe I stayed up and I definitely did this a little bit later so I can make sure things were in place. This being the case, it meant some sacrifices, right? And sometimes life does bring a level of sacrifice, but the thing we have to keep in mind is we're not to stay there. So when leaders define success based on alignment rather than approval, they make better decisions. They lead more authentically, and they build cultures with the teams that they work with and the organizations that they are part of that everybody is able to thrive. And so ask yourself, how am I defining success? Is it aligned with my values? And if you can't say affirmatively, yes, it is, then honey, you've got some work to do. And so this is the purpose as to why we have this notebook out, so that we can take a moment to pause, even here, and reflect. So, what is the case for redefining success? Well, if you're working in business or perhaps you own your own business, here's my personal philosophy around why it's so imperative for leaders and how we show up as leaders to start to make these adjustments. You see, organizations that empower leaders to pursue value aligned success tend to be and have higher retention rates. So ask yourself, what's our turnover rate looking like these days, right? They're able to retain that top talent. We know that there's a war on talent right now. We know that we're seeing the great migration still happening, right? This gray wave of retirees that are happening. Organizations that empower leaders to pursue value aligned success, they also have a stronger workplace culture. They have a stronger engagement. Remember, culture is how we show up every day, right? It's what people say we're known for. Culture is when we're engaging with one another and how we aspire to be when we're engaging with everyone that's outside of the organization as well. The last thing, when organizations empower leaders to pursue value aligned success, is better decisions are made. Plain and simple. They're not only making better decisions, but this also offers a space for innovation. If I'm working as a part of an organization that's aligned with my values, that means that not only can I innovate, but I can also fail faster, which will allow me to bounce back and try the next big thing. So, in today's talent market, leaders who model healthy, purpose driven success become magnets for high performance. They become magnets for high performers who want more than just a paycheck. They become magnets for people who really want a meaningful experience. They want growth. They want longevity. They want to be a part of a winning team, right? And so you want to be that magnet. You want your organization to be that magnet. You want to be able to have an organization that is focused on purpose driven success. So it's time to make the shift. So at the end of the day, it's time to shift the culture. Success is no longer about sacrificing your life. It's no longer about burnout. It's no longer about putting yourself to the side for the organization or for the work. It's about integrating your leadership with your values. It's about figuring out what and how I can ensure my values are expressed, how I show up on a day to day. When mid-sized businesses make this shift, they build stronger, more resilient teams. When mid-sized businesses make this shift, they have a culture that even outlasts the burnout cycle. And this is what's most important. So, as a leadership expert and workplace culture consultant, I help teams to be able to design their own definition as to what success looks like, what sustainable success, and how it shows up in the work that they do. And most importantly, we're working and we're supporting organizations on how they can align their success with strategies and the communication of the design to those that are around it. How they can communicate the idea and the strategies to those who will support it, to those who will help it to be implemented on the day to day. So here's one final thought. If you're a mid-sized business or an organizational leader ready to build a successful model that lasts beyond the day to day, we should connect. Absolutely. Somewhere around this video, or if you're listening to this podcast, I want to invite you to book a complimentary company culture map consultation. This company culture map consultation, this session, it's a way to assess where your team is defining and pursuing their goals, where your team is defining and pursuing their success, where there might be some gaps or opportunities to offer support, from leadership all the way to operations. So we can together redesign what leadership could look like in your organization or even for you personally. And most importantly, we can also make this sustainable because at the end of the day, that's what's most top of mind. How can we ensure a sustainable organization and operation of our day-to-day when it comes to our leadership? Listen, I'm Dr. Laci C. Robbins of Robbins Nest Consulting, and I want to invite you and remind you to please be sure and share this episode with another leader that you know who could use this information on today. And if you enjoyed this particular information, this particular episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another edition. All right, until the next time, and we're going to keep this conversation going around the 5 pillars of leadership, and I will be back with you with the second pillar of sustainable leadership. We got us a series going on, y'all. So don't miss another episode. As I always say, from process to practice, grab your stilettos and let's go. I'll see you again soon.